Welcome, Commissioner. How are you today?
I'm doing well. Thanks so much for having me.
Thanks so much for being here. So let's just talk about what reopening looks like. I mean, many businesses are clamoring to reopen. What does it look like for the small business owner right now?
What we wanted to make sure for our small businesses that they have the necessary tools and the information, right, and clarity on the regulatory requirements going forward before we start to really move to opening. The governor has set a sort of a phased approach, which the whole state is under, which begins to implement, I think, in the next two weeks or so. And so our job really at SBS is to make sure we communicate effectively what those new regulatory requirements are and give the small businesses, the necessary information that they need. The last thing I'll say is, we want to make sure that when we open up, that businesses have the ability to thrive and to really adapt in this environment. And the important component of that is for us to make sure that we don't have a boomerang effect as it pertains to the health crisis, right? And so we want to make sure that everybody's opening up safe, smart way. Our job is to help them do that, and then to help us not to go backwards as it pertains to the health crisis. It's the health crisis that brought on this ensued economic crisis, right? And so we want to make sure all that we do, we help businesses get back open safely. And give them the ability to really thrive as their businesses in this new sort of environment that we're in.
How do you reach that goal? How do you reach the goal of opening up the restaurants and the small mom and pop stores safely? And how difficult do you think that's going to be?
Well, I think we have a structure in place, an infrastructure in place at the city and the Department of Small Business Services, and also all of our sister agencies who work in concert to help small businesses, right? So there's an infrastructure already laid, and we're going to be building on that infrastructure. So from a government standpoint and sort of the small business services standpoint, we have the infrastructure to help you do so. And so the challenge is just work that we need to do and sort of change the way we do our work and make those adjustments for the small businesses. I think on the small businesses side, I mean, there is going to be some adjustments that need to be made. And then we have to work with them to make sure that those adjustments are made in an appropriate way, in the way that they can actually, conduct business. The mayor set up some advisory councils, sector advisory councils, and those advisory councils, we have, the restaurants and the mom and pop shops and also large businesses and others on those advisory councils who are giving us input on the things that they need and the challenges that they face. And making sure that once we put our framework in place, that it will be, it will be sort of like end user friendly, it would be simple so that our folks can understand it, but also that their recommendations have been incorporated into the process.
So tell me, I've heard you say infrastructure a couple of times. Talk to me about what that looks like. What does that mean?
Absolutely. So here at SBS, we have business solution centers across the city. In our business solution centers, we provide technical assistance, we provide webinars, we provide access to capital and resources. We link businesses and connect them to lenders and philanthropic funding. Also at those centers, we also help businesses or forward them or work with them, businesses who are seeking employees for specific jobs that they may have, et cetera. And so on top of the business solution centers, we have 18 Workforce One centers across the city who help job seekers find jobs, okay? And we're doing that with our Food Czar team, with essential businesses, our clinical and healthcare candidates who are looking for work right now. We're working with health and hospitals about transferring patients to hotels. All of these things we are working, and as part of our sort of network to make sure that we help businesses. Also on our website, we do have our resource page there that you can go to, and then if you go to that website, you'll be able to see additional resources. So we have the infrastructure both in the community and at the city level to really help those small businesses to get to where they need to be.
Right. I think the city is reporting that there's some 300,000 small jobs that have been lost just last month. And bringing those jobs back is going to be, I imagine, one of the number one goals that you have. And that means also that they have to be able to pay those people. Are there programs in place to help small businesses bridge the gap between the revenue that they're not going to be having because of this pause that we've been on?
Yeah, I think, there are several programs that exist now that we are helping our small businesses connect to. The governor just released a $100 million New York Forward Loan Fund, which is helping those who did not get assistance up to now. And I think that's a great product for our small businesses that we're going to help connect them to. The federal government as well continue to have the Paycheck Protection Program. That PPP program is essential at this time for our small businesses to help them with retaining employees and helping them with some overhead expenses. As you can imagine, earlier on in that program, we worked with our small business community to make sure that their voices were heard, and our federal elected officials were actually engaging in the necessary changes that program needed. And I believe the HEROES Act is out there and is being debated, and certainly something that we want to make sure that our small businesses know that PPP program is still open. And I believe it has $100 billion still in that program, that if they haven't used that yet or received a loan or from that program, they should. The loan is forgivable if you meet certain criteria, which I think is also essential. So it just becomes a grant essentially, if done right, and make sure that you get the assistance to do so. And that's what our office does.
That's great because, we speak to a lot of the representatives who are telling us that the small business, the under 10 employees, the minority business owners are just not getting those PPP loans because they don't have the associations with the banks that are getting that, have access to those funds. So you're saying that there is a program in place or a way that you can bridge that gap?
Yeah, so there was initially several challenges with the PPP program. One really reflective of the challenge we have here at the city where our rents are concerned. And so 25% of the loan product was to go to overhead expenses and rent. And obviously that's a challenge for us. And we did ask our federal partners to say, can we raise that or make it more flexible, maybe 50% or so. And so that's, I believe, in the new proposals that are out there. And I also think that it's critical to let folks know, like we're the one-stop shop for small businesses, right? And so, if you're having challenges with your PPP loan application or making sure that you are able to know where the resources are, that's why we're here. And we want to make sure that we help you to get to the right information, but also essentially a white glove service to make sure that you have our support and help to walk you through the process all the way to the end. And that's what our webinars are for. That's what our one-on-one technical assistance and support services are for, to help you to get those loans. And certainly on last thing I'll say on minority-owned businesses and women-owned businesses who are unable to access that fund, I believe part of the challenge initially was, how I think the program was structured and how banks were utilizing that program. From our perspective, we lobbied and pushed hard for the federal government to include CDFIs, Community Development Financial Institutions. And those CDFIs have been lending a significant amount of dollars out to really businesses that we know are impacted the most. That's our minority businesses, women-owned businesses, small mom and pop businesses who are struggling even more so. And so we know that those CDFIs are connected to those businesses, and we were able to effectively lobby to make sure that there's an allocation, a separate allocation for those CDFIs. And just as an example of how this has worked, the average loan size when we started with STEM 1 was $200,000. Now I believe it's down to about $43,000 or so. When you think about that, that speaks to the size of the company. And so we know we're hitting and getting to the smaller businesses with this tranche that's out there currently.
That's great. That's great. Can you talk to me just a little bit about the New York City Small Business Continuity Loan Fund?
Yeah, sure. So initially, when we started out with this program, it's based upon what we were hearing from the communities. Our community partners, our bids, our business associations came together and said, there's a challenge. We have an immediate impact that's occurring right now. So the city had set aside some funding and then went and raised some private dollars funding in order for us to serve our small businesses. It was for small businesses up to 75 employees. I'm sorry, up to 100 employees, up to $75,000 that they can get. And so that program, due to like overwhelming response and also the fact that the federal government programs came into effect, we did close that program, but we were able to get out, I believe about $20 million or so out the door. We're also connecting. Just so you know, we also connecting our small businesses to other resources for funding, such as we have 40 lenders in our network as SBS who lend upwards of $70 million or so a year through our referral services to small businesses. And so we've tapped those resources as well. And so to date, I think we are around 60 million if you combine all of the grant programs and all of the loan programs. And our awards from our 40 lenders to small businesses. And so, we'll continue to work with them, but that program, as mentioned, has been closed again, but we have all these other additional resources that we help facilitating the need that our small businesses need in order for them to get the financing to continue to conduct business.
Okay, great. I want to now just do a little pivot to the legislation that Mayor de Blasio just signed for relief for tenant commercial establishments and restaurants during the COVID-19 pandemic. And I'll just go down the list, starting with the top. So the first one prohibits third-party food delivery services from charging a fee for telephone orders. Talk to me a little bit about that. Just give people a bullet point on what these 7 things are.
I think we want to make sure that we are not hindering businesses from actually engaging in business, right? And I think part of my job as a new commissioner is to really look at fee structures, both what the private sector charge our small businesses, but also what we as a city charge our small businesses to conduct business in the city. So that's all of our fines, all of the requirements, and really looking at it. In the past few years, we've put $100 million back essentially in the hands of small businesses by the regulatory reform and fee reform. And we were going to continue to expand on that. So all those bills that the mayor signed are, around, fee structures, also around discrimination. So if you are a business owner or have employees, et cetera, and you are impacted by COVID, that you cannot be discriminated against. Landlords cannot discriminate against you. They cannot charge you additional dollars for that. They cannot, refuse to engage with you on your lease, et cetera. So again, there are protections around the fee structure, making sure you're not being overcharged and disparately impacted by those fees. And then the next bucket really dealt a lot with, how businesses are actually treated by their landlords and others to make sure that there's not discrimination. And so, I feel like restaurants, and we've heard from them, they had wanted this, for some time, right? And being overcharged by delivery apps and so forth, and also who are not being responsive at this time to the need in the community. And so, we sort of, these bills made it clear and sent a clear message to these, to the restaurants that we at the city, we're working for them, but also to the industry, right? And to the market that this is not an acceptable practice at this time. And we want to make sure that they know that now it is illegal to do so. And so therefore, it helps us, again, when we talk about recovery, it helps us to gear our small business up for success.
That's really great. Tell people how they can get to your services.
Well, I think the easiest way that you can connect to all that I've said is to just go to our website. It's nyc.gov/COVID-19 BIZ. And so when you go there, that's our resource page. It has a list of all of the resources that we have, including everything I said and a bunch more to really help our businesses get through this crisis.
Thank you so much, Commissioner Doris. I really appreciate you taking the time to talk to us.
Thank you so much. I appreciate you taking the time.